Hello, and welcome to The Word in Hospitality, a podcast powered by Muse. My name is Richard, I'm the founder of Muse, and I'll be your host for today. Every week we pick one word that encapsulates a key issue and we believe merits a conversation. Then we invite some amazing people from inside and outside our industry to share what that word means to them. This week, our word is purpose. So let's explore more of purpose in hospitality with Chris Penn, co-founder of Birch and Steel hotels and ex-managing director of the Ace in London. So let's get right into it.
So thanks so much. I feel like this has been 2 months in the making. Yeah. How are you doing anyway? How's the crisis been affecting you and everything?
In different ways, it really has been kind of a progression of emotions. The first, I guess, was denial, like when it was kind of just it of like, no, like they can't possibly shut us down and they can't possibly, make this much of a change.
Yeah.
The way
was that kind of mid-March or something?
Yeah. And then suddenly it was like, oh Jesus, right, okay. And then it became, Jesus, we've got a lockdown, and it became very functional. So I became kind of, I guess, functionally focused on like, right, this is what we've got to do. I've got to look at cash, preserve cash, kind of work out what we're doing with cash. Bearing in mind we were 2 weeks before we were launching something, which was not a good time to be placed in further negative cash burden situations. And then it was shut the site, get the team on furlough, basically lock down and get defensive, but still in a functional way, and then try to start the process of resolving cash, which has been a long process. But then there was the emotion of kind of like proper lockdown, where it was like, actually, you want to hate it. You want to be a hater and say, well, it's horrible that we're all being locked down and we're being forced to do these things. But I think there was a charm in like the reconnection with like family, the fact that you had arguably more time. You were probably forced to become a better parent, a better partner, a teacher to your children, and then there were times where you thought, actually, I feel like I've got more time, even though work was always still very very full on because of the position that we were in as a business and because of our needs to resolve cash and everything else. But actually, it just felt like you had more time because you weren't traveling around, you weren't pushing meetings all the time because other people weren't around, and then it was kind of, it felt almost good in a weird way for a few weeks. I quite like structure anyway, so as a person I quite like structure in my life. So then it felt like really structured and clear, and get a plan, work out what we're doing, work out how this all works, and then it became oh Jesus Christ, I'm a bad teacher, I'm a bad father, I'm a bad worker, in our house.
How old are your kids?
10, 9 and 7.
Oh wow.
And they were frustrated about not. So initially they were like, "Great, we're not going to school." My friends, you're rubbish teachers, mum and dad. I don't want to work. And so it became completely opposite, where it was quite depressing. It became quite hard to motivate yourself in the mornings. I was managing a lot of different challenges. Doing a lot of crisis management with, my own business, the brand, the asset, trying to navigate it through what a very complex situation that was already complex in its nature through being transformative of an existing business, but also being a new brand, a new business, a new ethic, a new ethos, and all that kind of stuff. So then it kind of got me down. And then it became very, very hard. And then I guess off the back of that, then we kind of came out of lockdown, and I would say I started to see the light again a bit. But that was because it felt like things were progressing. We were maybe going to get an opportunity to open. We'd started to get some resolution on cash. We got more positivity around that. So it felt like we had gone through that idea of like brutal, can we survive, to we should survive, to maybe we will survive. And that felt good. But then to me, the harsh reality of how people were coming back to life made me then very down again, because it was almost schizophrenic in its kind of delivery of, we want people out, but you're going to die. We want people to go out to restaurants. We're going to give you vouchers, but don't go out because there's going to be a second wave. We want people to use retail. We want to restart the economy, but you can't really use retail. Oh, and now you need to wear face masks. It's become this thing of like a challenge of, I guess it's every business, every human being of, are we to go out? Are we not to go out? Can we go out? Can we not go out? And can we please have some sanity? Because my concern and kind of this idea of purpose is that as humans, we often are forced into short-termism. Business over the last, and hotels and hospitality have done it for quite some time. They work in like 3-year cycles and 3-year cycles and 3-year cycles, and it's like solve something and then it's someone else's problem. What happens after that is someone else's problem. And I think humanity is meant to be evolutionary and continually grow. And I worry that in situations like this, people revert to that short-termism and that kind of shut up shop, survive. And I think it's important to survive, but it's also important to survive with still sanity, emotional health, emotional well-being, and still a level of purpose of the impact of the decisions that we're making today on the world, human being, and our kind of personal and societal evolution over the next 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 years. Because I just worry that whether it's business decisions, whether it's legislative decisions, are potentially having quite a damaging effect in the longer term on, of course, there's this horrible impact on people's health in the short term. And some people are losing their lives and family, and that's absolutely devastating. At the same time, I feel worried about the way that people are not thinking of the longer term survival of humanity. And I guess it sounds quite spiritual, but the longer term survival of humanity, and how we as humans interact, how we build relationships together, how we emotionally connect, and indeed how we look after the world and the world around us for the longer term. I've seen it in my kids, you know, the way they've kind of felt frustrated, and the way they've almost, you know, been walking down the street, distancing, but seeing people that almost look at the kids as if they're going to kill them. And it's like, it's created this quite divided society. And for me, in lockdown, it was almost more together, because everybody was supporting each other, looking out for each other. Community kind of, it grew, it almost like blossomed in lockdown. And I love that, looking out for people, friends, family, neighbors, people that you could help. Can I help? What can we do? Kind of going out for the clap every Thursday. That was lovely. It felt like community was starting to become community again. And then after lockdown, it's almost like
very local, you know. I think I had this thing where I managed to actually kind of see my neighbors for the first time, you know, and I was like really connecting with my neighbors for absolutely the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And arguably we should do more of that, and should have done more of that. And I think that's some of the charming stuff that come out of it. And then I feel like post that, because of the constantly changing environment, and I get in a crisis, you have to be able to to make changes quickly, but it feels confusing when the changes get made. And there are some people that I guess see everybody as a threat, and it would be horrible if you are vulnerable, and I very much feel for those that are very vulnerable. At the same time, there are kind of a next generation of kids, and as a parent, it's kind of more my way of thinking nowadays is like, what is the impact of the way society is behaving now and the enforcements of society on the kids, accepting that they're not in any short-term risk themselves really, but what is the impact on this in the long term for their personal development, their personal well-being, emotional well-being, and this goes back to my whole sense of we've got to do the right things for the short term, but we've also got to consider the impact of the short-term decisions that we make on the longer term things that will make that will help us to be a sustainable society, community.
Yeah, I think like from I guess the both of us, like, you know, it's always difficult when you're a founder of a company and, you know, you want the company to grow and you want the thing to actually be as massive as it could be. And then you get to situations like this where it's just like that's just not possible at the present moment. You're not able to actually kind of grow. And so I remember a few weeks back, I was talking on another podcast, and like, you know, I feel like the one question that nobody's really asked is like, what is the moral obligation of a founder to grow? You know, and how should somebody look at that from that perspective? And, you know, if you've taken on this kind of mantle, which I think is a very great mantle of, you know, I will be a person that will grow the next business or the next thing that will, you know, move this society forward and move this, you know, whatever industry you're in, basically moving that forward. You know, I guess basically on the one side, there's the fidelity to the idea that you have to have. Then on the other side, it's also to the people that kind of get you there. I think that's really, really difficult because it's like, you know, which one of those is in fact more important? And I think as a founder, you always, or I don't know about you, but I always tend to gravitate towards the idea that I've got to protect the idea. You know, that's the thing that, like, you know, that the buck stops there basically. And unfortunately, you know, the growth, it's amazing if you can take as many kind of people on it, but I feel that, you know, without the idea, you don't have that kind of that purpose of what you're actually trying to do. And if you don't have that, then you don't really have a business, basically.
I would agree. I guess I would use a slightly different word than the idea, but it's on the same premise of what you were saying, Richard. But when I made the decision to go out on my own to create my own products in an industry that I'd spent many years working for others, one thing I wanted to do, and one thing that I guess my time with Ace and Alex and those guys had taught me, was be true to yourself, be true, be genuine, and actually good things can happen if you care. And what I wanted to do was make sure that anything I did was founded upon care and love. And so, although that's not an idea, it kind of has been the foundation of everything that I've wanted to do. Whether it's in the early years where it was a real struggle in the first year just to try and make ends meet, pay the mortgage, like, you know, still the idea was, well, don't just take an asset because that asset might make a short-term gain, because that's not what you're doing. You're not trying to create a short-term gain. You're trying to put care and love into something and to be able to help people to live better lives. And so found a business that has more meaning and purpose to you, and then there's greater chance of it surviving for the longer term, regardless of what is thrown at it. And I hope that is what will carry us through this horrible, challenging situation, is the fact that because I founded this off wanting to bring care and love into the things that I was doing, and to care and love the people that I brought into that, or the people that we would engage with as consumers, actually then people will still have that desire to be loved and cared for, regardless of what is going on in the world. And so that's the thing I try to remain true to, and that purpose of what I set out for. And there have been shorter opportunities, regardless of the current climate. There were shorter opportunities in the lead up to building Birch and in the lead up to kind of where we are with Steel, about just rush and do this because we might be able to make a bit of cash. We might be able to do this. But had I done that, then I would be in a completely different path at the moment, and I probably would have been back working for someone else. Not being able to put as much of my love into something that I'm doing. And so that's kind of that's what I try to protect in terms of the idea, even though I wouldn't see it as an idea.
No, I think it's the same, and I think that I particularly kind of feel like this as well. I feel like, you know, we're in a moment where you do, you know, I don't know how you feel, but like I almost kind of like don't understand what I do without this company, because all of my ideas are intertwined with the company that I'm trying to build, and all of my kind of next ideas are still within, you know, future products that and so it's, you know, that kind of thing that I think is difficult to you know, get yourself out of, because you are trying to actually kind of build up something for all the people that come along on that journey, and for all of the different, I guess, stakeholders, whether it's investors or anyone else. But it is about the idea, about the fact that, you know, if you let yourself be guided by those short-term principles to maybe do that kind of pragmatic thing that might seem like a good kind of way for you to kind of use a situation that you have, it just feels like, no, that like that's the beginning of the end. That's when you even kind of start falling out of love with I guess that part of yourself that still basically kind of really has that passion for it.
I would absolutely agree with you. I would say every minute of every day my mind is alive with complexity, with information, with ideas, and very often they are, and most of the time at the moment, they are related to what I hope to achieve with, you know, the brands that we're trying to create and are creating. And I want to put my personal touch and my personal care and my personal love into those things. Otherwise, it's not something that's founded upon those principles. And so, yeah, you do that. And that is the point, to stay true to that. You can't just drop everything of those principles and that purpose for the short term. Otherwise, ultimately, then I will resent the thoughts that are in my mind. I will resent the constant combating in my mind of why, what you're saying, what do you mean? Should we, you know, I enjoy it. I enjoy the constant dialogue between my kind of human brain and rational brain and my creative, sometimes demonstrative brain, and sometimes it feels like it's going the wrong way, but then the thing that keeps you going, that purpose, like, make sure that it goes in the right way, and it makes sure that you're not jeopardizing your family's life, you're not risking all, and you know, you've still got to remember who you are, and the importance of those people around you that you love, and the importance of the fact that you love doing what you're doing, and you are connected to it, as well as hoping that other people will connect over time.
And that, like, I guess basically that even the externalities are good. Like, I always kind of think of it as like, you know, you don't want to be one of these kind of people who's like, you know, producing energy, great, but also polluting the environment, bad, you know. And it's just like, I think it has to be like, if you can, the ultimate is basically, is even if your waste product basically, and the externalities of what you're doing is actually kind of creating a positive influence on the world.
Yeah, and that's what I think. That's what I think the danger is of the current climate, and any recession, regardless of whether it's a specific, any challenge, regardless of whether it's an economic challenge or it's a societal challenge or it's an environmental challenge, whatever it is, the important thing is to kind of keep remembering that the choices that we make now have a big impact on all of those things for the long term, and it's our duty to make sure that we keep having a positive impact.
Yeah.
And add, like you say, adding energy to things as we invest our time and our minds and our hearts in things.
Yeah.
And at the point at which it becomes negative, that's a very dangerous place to be. And then you lose all your purpose. And I was going to say is the danger of the current climate is it will encourage some businesses, people, corporations, companies, whatever, that don't have purpose to just make material short-term changes to things that then run the risk of things really going wrong, both for now and for the longer term, rather than, I guess, having a patient, considered, cautious and protective approach in the short term that enables you to survive the short term, but make sure that nothing that you're doing in the short term is to the detriment of the long-term positive impact of you, your business, your company, for tomorrow and the next generation or whatever. And my worry is things like single-use plastics, which were the horrible, word that we were kind of poisoned against, rightly so, a year ago, and for many quite some time before then. Lots of companies jumping on the bandwagon, we're now not putting single-use plastics in because people are saying you shouldn't have single-use plastics, rather than we know that actually they are really, really damaging to the environment. Now it comes to this, and suddenly those same people are disposing of face masks every day, using plastic again in their everyday lives because no, we've got to use plastic. Well, no, you don't. You can find other ways, but you've just convinced yourself that you need plastic because now this is the most important thing. But what my worry is, then what's to say in 6 months' time that our poor fish in our seas and the animals around us are not going to be getting caught up in disposed face masks? And what makes us more important than the world around us, that we think that we have to just purely protect ourselves in the short term rather than the whole of the ecosystem for the longer term?
Yeah, like I guess for that, like I'm a big optimist. So for me, I look at, for example, like the plastics trade. Why are plastics so unbelievably cheap? They're mainly kind of there because of our insatiable appetite for oil. And that's basically a waste product of the of extracting fuel from crude. And so I just think that in the same way that I think the kind of the long march towards justice and some kind of equality or equilibrium is already there. So I think that yes, those short-term things are very, very much damaging, but I think actually there's enough there that makes me actually kind of feel that we are working in the right way. Whether it's even stupid things like, for example, seeing the stock market kind of really, really take to Tesla and kind of now deciding that after we will come out of this, electric cars are probably going to be the only real kind of like long-term option, and essentially rewarding that type of thinking within any of the kind of manufacturers, which again basically kind of makes oil less important. So I think that those types of things are symbolically really, really interesting. And I think it's the same thing with, for example, even societal movements that we see now. And I I do think that's one of the things that I think people do generally use these types of crises to have a look at the world and go, look, we've done so much and we actually just want to get out of this in a really, really good way. And we do want to, build a better world. We want to kind of, actually have a more equitable world. And we don't think that the trade-off is for some of these short-term things. And I think, I think the point is that you have to make sure that you keep yourself on that path. But I do think that the world is becoming more dominated by the types of entrepreneurs that do want to kind of, keep that long-term focus, and the types of companies as well that see, why long-term focus is actually more important than just the next quarter or just the next 2 or 3 quarters basically that you might have. So I'm kind of quite bullish on. Yeah. But actually, I think that's probably a good segue into what we should have started with me asking you about, Birch and Steel, and just getting you to actually explain a little bit more about the brands themselves.
Birch is all about, whereas Steel is mental and physical health and wellness, and enabling you soft and hard performance, and we'll work with performance networks and well-being networks. Birch is very much wellness is a pillar, and then you bring on all these other pillars that are this idea of a great balanced lifestyle that many people in cities have the benefit of, normally all the time. Great fitness, great studio fitness particularly, great kind of access to creativity, talent, to craft, to classes, to programming, great access to great coffee, to great food, to love put in many restaurants, and then the arts and artists and design. And then you're in a city and you get bundles of that, and then you go outside the city and it's like, well, because we're outside the city, we got to now serve you pretty bad coffee, pretty bad food. We're just going to do weddings, and then we will take all of these beautiful things that used to be a beautiful part of history, these great buildings, and we'll whack a conference center on, neutralize it, and then hope that people come. And for us, we feel that Birch can be that place where people escape to. It gives them the ability, hopefully, if we have, and I believe that we have, created the experience and the product right, with the level of humanity and truth and honesty that we put into it, and the people and the programming and everything else, to say, well, actually, if you stayed at Birch for a weekend, you'd feel like you stayed there for a week, which means that Birch as a brand could give you one of your greatest resources and the hardest resources, which is time. We could almost make you feel like you were earning time when you came and retreated, escaped, fleed to us from your crazy, pressured, deadline-driven, hectic life. But at the same time, we'll still give you access to incredible food, incredible programming, incredible classes, great people, great emotion, great love, great care, and nature. And that's what.
Like, I really, I think I really like that, because I think one of the things that we talk about internally in News quite a lot is this idea that, I think the main change that's going to come to hospitality is really the idea that, you're not selling rooms. And I think for too long, most brands have basically kind of been built out of the idea that they are everything shops. We cater to every man and every single purpose. And the only thing that you kind of really, really need from us is to know that the sheets will be clean. And I don't think that that's actually what consumers want. And I think that that's what, the boutique industry found. And then essentially Airbnb found that with, kind of creating a micro boutique industry, and I think that idea is actually contrary to what customers really truly want. And I think what they're really after is basically something that they can align themselves with the brand and actually live that type of lifestyle. And I think you've seen it in, you know, the boutique world and some of those brands. But that's what I really like about what you're saying with particularly Steel hotels. I think there's a very, very clear kind of articulation about the fact that, like, we will be part of your life, because we'll also be, you know, the part of your life that hopefully actually kind of kicks you on, you know, and hopefully instills some of those things that you then kind of remember about performance and things like that. And like, I think that again kind of brings it back to the central idea of purpose, and the fact that it does seem that, you know, out of the ashes of what is the coronavirus should come a number of these types of brands, basically, that think about the purpose of, you know, why am I actually building this hotel? Why am I putting this color on the walls? Why am I putting this particular type of machinery in my gym? Why am I, you know, why is it here? Why are the external places next to my hotel, why do they all make sense for the type of customer that I really, really want? Not the customer that might have booked because they were looking for the cheapest room.
Yeah. Yeah, look, and that was how people used to build companies, businesses. I mean, they probably weren't even called companies at that time. They were just called things that oh, there's this thing called an inn, or there's this thing called, should we try it? But people wouldn't have tried them if they weren't something that was inventive or something that people genuinely wanted and needed. The trouble is that through that need has become the commoditization of that need. And then the next person has just gone, well, I'll do exactly what they're doing, but just make it green rather than blue. And then I'll do exactly the same, but I'll make it smaller and make it red. And then I'll do exactly the same thing. But then they haven't necessarily connected that over that time, we've lost this idea of why are we doing it?
Yeah.
If we are only doing it because someone else is doing it and it feels like there's good opportunity because there is a market and there is demand and all that stuff, which obviously you guys are renowned for supporting, well, that's great. But as soon as the market changes, you just sit on that curve of commoditized market demand, which says when demand is good in the market, we're all good. When demand is bad, we all massively suffer, because there's no other reason for people to engage. So to me, experience is far more important than commodity, and experience can only be derived from purpose.
Yeah. No, like I totally kind of hidden superpower within hospitality that I don't think most hoteliers are actually kind of aware of. I think, you know, it's, yeah, because I always think about it in terms of, you know, if you think about what a hotelier has at their tips, you know, and they will always talk about technology companies or something like that, you know, having it, you know, doing things in such an easy way. Like, I always think about the, you know, the fact that, you know, Netflix makes a ton of money because people are willing to engage with that brand and with the experience that that brand kind of gives them for perhaps 2 hours in a day, or 1 hour in a day, or, you know, let's say 6 hours in a week. If you think about basically like that extrapolated to hotels, you're maybe actually kind of in a hotel for, let's say, 60 hours in a month. So you're actually engaging with that brand much more than you are with Netflix. It's just like no hotel would ever think about it in that way, because they almost kind of see it as, we're just selling rooms. We're not selling the experience. We're not selling the entertainment. We're not selling the aspiration that you actually have by choosing our hotel and our brand. And they're kind of seeing it as somehow worse than the proposition of a tech company. And I think that mindset, as you're saying, just has to completely change.
Yeah, 100%. So I would hope that everything that we're doing with Birch and Birch will officially open on Monday.
Nice. Congratulations.
It's harder to get hold of recently, but we'll open our doors on Monday. I'm pleased to say to a good level of trade and people that hopefully will come through the doors and have an incredible time, because we genuinely want people to have an incredible time. That when people do experience us, they will feel that purpose, they will feel that love, feel that care. And yes, of course, we'll make mistakes. I mean, every business does, but hopefully that will be the thing that makes us, COVID, recession, whatever other thing gets thrown at us, proof. Because the purpose that enables us to create experience enables us to be something which creates a level of loyalty that even through tough times is still needed and desired, whereas a commodity can be thrown away very, very quickly.
Nice. I actually really love that as a as almost an ending thing. I don't want to take up too much of your time, because I know that it's getting quite late on a Wednesday. But no, I think that this is, you know, to me, I think everything that you're saying makes a ton of sense. I do think that that's what the purpose of hospitality actually is, and I can't do anything but to wish you good luck for that opening. I'm sure that, you know, you're deep in the throes of what that pre-opening experience is basically like. So I just really hope it goes very well for you.
Thank you.